Hi, this is Web3 Talks, the podcast where we learn how to build Web3 projects directly from Web3 founders. My name is Maciej Budkowski and I talk with the founders about their projects, business models, technology, community building, user acquisition strategies, and more. If you want to start your own project or are just curious about the space, this podcast will bring you answers. Stay tuned. Today's guest is Nik Kalyani, founder of Decentology, a project that some of you might have heard through dapps. But Nik, before we get to the nuts and bolts of Decentology, could you share your story? How have you ended up here in this crazy Web3 space that we are all inside?
Yeah. First of all, thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a serial entrepreneur and Decentology is my fifth startup. I've had two fails and two wins previously. I'm really excited about a project called .NET Nuke, DNN, an open source CMS in the Microsoft space that ended up becoming one of the larger projects. But being a geek, I got into sort of Bitcoin mining and all that pretty early. And then when Ethereum came along and I was very, very excited about Solidity and started programming in it and also spoke about it at a few different conferences. And then I had the opportunity to partner with Udacity and create their blockchain nano degree. So that helped a lot of developers learn. And I think they still continue to learn from that course. And really, that journey, both working in open source and building a developer community, and then helping to create educational content for developers in this space, led me to acutely understand how much friction there is for developers to build in Web3 versus in Web2. In Web2, there's so much content. There are so many tools. It's fairly mature. But in Web3, it's all new. It's happening very, very fast. The documentation and the libraries, et cetera, are frequently out of sync, if they are even existing in many cases, et cetera. And so for developers, it's a sheer vertical cliff. So the company and the idea behind the dapps project was to really compress time for developers. It is not unusual for a developer starting off in this space to take a couple of weeks before they see anything on their desktop, which is meaningful. Even the hello world can take a little bit of time. And so with dapps, we set off to compress time and to make it so it doesn't take them that long and to really ease that developer journey.
Yeah, I've seen this slide from your If Denver demo where there was a slide, like a chart that shown like 80% of Web3 developer skills are basically Web2 skills. And only this 20% is the part that might be very discouraging for people who have to start, working in new rules and new world of coding.
Yeah, actually, it's the opposite, Mac. I mean, what a lot of people today, a lot of developers today feel like, oh, I can't get into Web3 because I have to learn Solidity or Cadence or Rust. And I'm here to tell you that that is absolutely not the case. There's only a small number of developers who choose to become smart contract developers who need to learn those skills. But for a vast majority of developers, if you know JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, you are set. You can start building Web3 apps today. And, that's, I think, what's most exciting. And it's rather unfortunate that the popular sort of narrative is that to become a Web3 developer, you have to be a full stack developer. We don't do that in Web2. We don't tell everybody that if you want to be a Web2 developer, you got to be learning APIs and databases and all of that kind of stuff. You can choose to be a front-end developer and it works just fine. So the same is true in Web3. And it's actually even more true in Web3 because there's only a small number of developers that need to be building smart contracts. The rest of us can consume those contracts on-chain. They're like APIs, right? I mean, these smart contracts. So we can use those same contracts through our JavaScript code and build fairly sophisticated applications. And that's what we're kind of building with the Hyperverse.
I've heard that your mission is to onboard 10 million Web2 developers to this Web3 world, which is a pretty ambitious goal. But, if you succeed, it will be a breakthrough. And, because I talk with many projects and everyone is asking how can I get more developers that, that I can just onboard and have this plug and play kind of mentality where they can just from the day one start to ship code. So I'm very excited about it. And I'm wondering, what's the story behind the project? Because, you've said a little bit about it, but I'm wondering how this transition between your first startups and Dapstarter and Hyperverse, like how did it look like?
Yeah, this is an evolution of what we are seeing in the marketplace. So, as I mentioned, when we started building Dapstarter, etc., our goal was to compress time. Hindsight 2020, now we know that just aspiring and hoping that web developers will learn Solidity, etc., is actually a pipe dream. It's a fantasy. It's not going to happen because it's a bridge too far. It's hard for people to learn these skills. It's not only about learning a language, it's also learning different programming paradigms. Writing a smart contract requires you to efficiently write code where each line costs money. JavaScript developers don't think like that. We don't need to. We have very fast browsers. We have very fast processors. We don't have to think like that. But that's different on the blockchain. So in hindsight, as I said, we had hoped to like first optimize things and compress time, but then we realized that we got to completely scrap that idea and really make it so we meet JavaScript developers on their terms. And what that means is take advantage of the best thing that is available in blockchain right now, and that is called composability.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you look back at what made Web 2 very successful, it was the advent of APIs. It used to be that something as simple as payment was very hard. Then along came Stripe, and you put 2 lines of code and you're done. Messaging was hard. Add Twilio, and the problem is solved. Maps, Google, storage, AWS, etc. That led to this explosion of growth in Web 2 apps. We are about to replicate that exact same thing in Web 3 with the hyperverse. What the model we've come up with is instead of trying to get web developers to learn Solidity and learn Cadence and learn Rust, instead, we are saying that the small portion of developers who are in fact skilled in those languages, etc., should build single purpose smart contracts. We call them smart modules that do one thing and one thing really well. They are deployed on chain. And what we do is create a JavaScript library that makes it super simple for web developers to assemble those smart modules, very much like Lego blocks, and compose applications. If this sounds familiar, it is because that's exactly what Web 2 and APIs are. We are just bringing composability to Web 3 with the hyperverse. And this is why we are very confident that the 10 million developers number is actually small. We are going to go way past that.
Okay, and regarding this composability, I know this Chris Dixon quote that composability to software development is what compound interest is to finance, that you kind of can, exponentially get like better products. But one question that I have is that, many people say that composability is a part of Web3, but as far as I understand, you have seen that it doesn't work that well, like it doesn't deliver the promise, at least in not all cases. So could you expand on that?
Well, I don't know that I agree with the premise, but let's assume it's true. Like if you look at Uniswap, for example, there's composability in the DeFi world. If we are to go with the premise that composability doesn't work in Web3, let's explore the reasons why. I think the first and foremost reason might be that there is no discoverability. Contracts and on-chain, everything is opaque. You need to deal with numbers and you need to be able to find stuff. This is the biggest impediment to composability, actually, and it seems like it should be an easy problem to solve, but it isn't. So with the hyperverse, that's the number one thing we solved is in these smart modules, there is baked in metadata for all these modules. So if this sounds familiar again, it's because we are borrowing from the world of NPM. So we are literally creating NPM for smart contracts. So the ability for developers to discover smart modules and then connect them is one way in which we are addressing composability. I think the other problem comes also from a typical problem in open source, which is monetization. It's how do you incentivize developers to build if everyone doesn't want to just build free stuff? And so baked right into the hyperverse specification is the ability for a developer to choose to have certain transactions in their smart module be monetized. So they can either be a flat fee or, for example, let's say that it's a function that is minting an NFT. It could be a percentage of the monetary value of that. So now developers can choose to build smart modules that are free or smart modules that are monetized. And here's the best part. The monetary component, if they have a good module, is forever because once it's on chain, that money keeps on adding forever. So that's number two, monetization. And the third aspect is security. When we go to NPM today and we do NPM, whatever, we have no idea whose code we are bringing onto our machine. None. We can't afford to do that on chain in Web3, especially if there's money involved in these transactions. So we've come up with a very innovative solution for that. What we are doing is basically growing a community of auditors. And before each smart module goes live, auditors will audit the smart module, multiple of them. And if they feel that the code is secure, they will stake tokens as a form of security and confidence on it. This acts as an insurance layer on the smart module. So we are addressing, I think, the three main problems that you would have with composability, which is discoverability, monetization, and security. And so I think we are solving this problem.
It's pretty exciting. Like when I hear about it, because, trying to translate it to more like layman terms for people who haven't used NPM, like this is like as if you could Google like your smart contracts and see, maybe not even Google, like more like Amazon, like as you could, see features and so on and choose the one that suits you. And the other thing regarding this monetization, like this is big problem for open source developers. Like I know that, most of them do it for fun, but when it grows, it takes more and more of your time. So you have to either work less for money or just say, okay, I won't do it anymore, which is a very hard problem for many people. And it gives me a feeling that every coder can become like a mini entrepreneur because of that, because, their code can work just as if it was like mini Amazon or mini Twilio or whatever. So this is like super interesting. And regarding the security, it's also very new because typically if you want to get your code audited, you have to pay like $100,000 or something like that.
Way more than that, yeah.
Yeah, and even then, you always have to rely just on reputation of the people.
Mm-hmm.
So they got their money for audit, and if it goes wrong, they can lose like some part of their reputation, but they don't have any financial
accountability. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is very, very interesting in terms of incentives alignment.
Yeah. You took the words from my mouth. That's exactly what it's about. Because, right now, auditing is fundamentally a consulting model and it's broken. And we wanted to go about fixing that. And I think our solution will work really well.
Okay. So I'd like to ask you more about how does it work? Like what's under the hood? And, I started and tested Starter before our recording. I played around with it. And I'm not as expert on Solidity. Like my, smart contracts understanding is limited to what has been covered in Crypto Zombies. So I'm not an expert by any means. But it was pretty interesting because I could click a few buttons, like say, okay, I want to do something for Solidity, like for Ethereum, and I want to prepare an NFT, and I want to use, for example, IPFS, and bam, I just got a link to GitHub where there's code, all the files are there. The documentation is really well written. I've checked it out. So it's pretty easy to understand what do the functions do actually. So this is like level one, but I've seen your If Denver demo where you have shown this Tribes application. And it was really the next level of that because you had even more features built into that, and it was easier to change small elements to just fit your needs of this app. So, how does it work? How do you make it happen?
That's a great question. And first of all, thank you for taking the time to try out Starter. And you're right. That is the original version. But one of the things I have learned in my journey as an entrepreneur is never be afraid to cannibalize your own product for the sake of progress. And that's actually precisely what we've done with Starter. We saw that product was good. It really compressed time, but it was solving the wrong problem. It was helping developers to get a dev environment set up where they could continue to quickly write in Solidity or Cadence or whatever. It was giving them a full stack source code with the contracts, unit tests, UI harness, etc. But as we learned, we were solving the wrong problem. We want to make it easier for web developers if they're going to grow and not smart contract developers. So we're going to continue to address the 20% of developers in our ecosystem who we know are going to build these smart modules and create DAppStarter-like tools for them. But with the Hyperverse, what we've done is shifted our focus so that we've created a level of abstraction so that web developers can quickly, within, I would say, 30 seconds or less, have their Web3 app running on their desktop. So at ETH Denver, we launched our Hyperverse public preview for the first time. And what we showed there was a simple module called Tribes. And that module allows you to join one tribe of many. And when you join a tribe, you leave any previous tribe you would be in. It's a model that works in very simplistic, game scenarios, etc. Our goal there was not for that module to represent something amazing. It was to prove that the Hyperverse modular approach does work. So now with the Hyperverse, what you get as a JavaScript developer is essentially all the code. So you can start building a client application and choose which modules you want. You add them. It's all React.js code, by the way, React being one of the most popular frameworks in JavaScript. So you start adding those. We've done all the work of wiring up the blockchain, wiring up the wallet integration, in whether it's MetaMask or Wallet Connect. And we are, by the way, blockchain agnostic. So we are supporting Flow, Ethereum, Metis, and Algorand initially, but we're going to expand to many more blockchains. So you will see very shortly, we are about to launch a major bounty program in concert with the Developer DAO conference. And there you will see the release of Hyperverse Dev. This is a website where you go, you see all the different modules that are available, you pick them, and you get going. You start building your JavaScript app that is live and connected to the blockchain in less than a minute. So that's kind of where we are going. So under the hood, the heavy lifting is all our code that does the connection to the blockchain, does the wallet integration, etc. So from a developer's perspective, you're dealing with 2 or 3 lines of React code. That's it.
Yeah, I've seen it on a demo. It was pretty crazy that, there are 2, 3 lines and new features just appear magically.
Yeah.
So how do you prepare these modules? Like, are they just, small parts of code that you just slice up and they are written at this point by you? Because I know that in the future you want them to be written by different developers, but how do you prepare these modules?
Yeah. So we have a small starter kit project that you can use to modify and create your smart module. Yeah. So initially we are building them, but right away, starting next week, we are going to have bounties available. So third-party developers who know Solidity, who know Cadence can start creating these and contributing them. They'll go through a review process and they'll go through an audit process. And assuming that passes, then they will be available. We expect to be going on mainnet by April. So right now we are doing everything on testnet because we want to give developers a chance to play with this. We also want to continue to tweak our model to make sure that it really works. But in April, we'll start going live. So developers can build shipping apps as of April.
Great. So the thing that came to my mind when I was learning about your product was, Open Zeppelin is like the most widely known auditing platform, but they also have like tons of code that you can just plug and play and use. So I'm wondering how smart modules are different from Open Zeppelin code.
Yep, there's a couple of differences. So first of all, it's important to understand that with the Hyperverse, we are addressing the problem of making it easy for web developers to build there. Open Zeppelin is making it easier for smart contract developers to build stuff, right? So that's one important difference. And in fact, our smart modules, in many cases, rely on Open Zeppelin code. It is available, it is tested, and it's high quality code. We should use it. There's one other difference is when you are using an Open Zeppelin library, you are importing it into your Solidity code, for example, and then you are deploying your contract there. So you have a new contract you're deploying. Now, you can choose to import the on-chain Open Zeppelin code to lower the cost of that, but you're still creating a contract and deploying it. With the Hyperverse, we use a factory pattern that makes it so that the cost of your application, which is essentially a clone of the existing contracts, is very, very cheap. So from a cost standpoint, it's way more economical to use this modular approach and have apps built using it versus using Open Zeppelin. But really, the two solve 2 different problems and both coexist. And like I said, we will use Open Zeppelin code in our contracts also. So they're complementary. They're not competitive in any way.
Yeah, it's very refreshing, to be honest, to hear this kind of attitude where you want to cooperate. It's not refreshing in Web3 because Web3 is totally about cooperation with all the entities, at least at this stage. But it's very refreshing when you look at, the business world. And this is the thing that I was thinking about for quite a long time about developers. The developers are different people. I mean, like different in a way that, how many lawyers do open source law stuff just to help people and just spread it, and just, they don't do it. Like sometimes they do something pro bono, but it's not like part of their job. And, some businessmen, maybe they might share their insights or write some books or blog, but many of them do it for money. Like, it's their first thing. Like, I will do it, so I'll promote my consulting or I can angel invest or whatever. But developers have this approach to creating, they just want to create cool stuff. And I'm very happy to talk with you because I can hear and see, listeners might not see, Nik, but that you are very excited about helping developers to create more and to build more apps and just get rewarded finally for the things that they do. So as we talk about users, how have you acquired your first users?
Yeah, thank you. Just to address that, I'm a builder at heart. I love to build and I like to help other people build. And, I am a firm believer in the rising tide lifts all boats philosophy. And I'll continue to do that for the rest of my life. In terms of acquiring developers, our philosophy here is that we need to get lots of early adopters, developers excited about this platform. And as they start building apps, it's almost going to be like a flywheel. It's going to attract more developers to build more modules, which will then create more apps, etc. So early on, what we are doing is workshops. We are doing a lot of workshops where we are giving developers access to the knowledge that they need in order to build with it. We are sponsoring conferences where we are doing boot camps and workshops. We might do a hackathon or two here or there, but I'm not a firm believer in hackathons to get high quality work product because in general, hackathons are about creating a proof of concept very quickly, but we want to create serious tools for serious developers. And so we are more in the realm of running bounties. So with bounties, what we want to do is have the business users in the ecosystem say that this is the solution I need. And we will then distill that into a list of modules and have developers build that. And then maybe app developers can look at that and go, okay, I can build that solution. They can consume those modules and build it. So we're going to have two kinds of bounties, one for smart modules and one for applications. And that's our go-to market.
Okay. And how do you reach them? Do you, apart from conferences, obviously, do you, I don't know, use your Twitter account or just, newsletters or blogs or, how do you reach developers?
Well, I'm reaching them right now, speaking with you. But yeah, I mean, we use Twitter quite a bit. I have a fairly decent following. I do that. And also we speak at conferences. Myself and my team does that. We are also active members of various different DAOs, and we work with them. But we are also actively looking for projects that are building on Web3, and we help them out. We help get them to market as quickly as possible. We are also very closely partnered with all the top chains that we support, and we work with their biz dev and their marketing teams to organize events. Like, for example, we are working on planning a women's developer event with the Flow blockchain coming up here soon. We just did an event at ETH Denver with the Metis blockchain. So there's always those kind of things going on. And over time, those all add up to a lot of developers. Our goal is that by this summer, we should hit around 50,000 developers on Hyperverse.
Oh, that's an ambitious goal. So fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So, one thing that I really liked about monetization was that I've read an idea, I think, in your blog that you can create an NFT that's tied to the code. And whenever the code is used, you get this small part of the fee that's being charged. So I'm wondering, how do you do it technically? Like, how can you create this kind of royalties, that are linked to NFT that is linked to the code? Like, how do you make it work?
Yeah, so NFTs are, at the end of the day, a representation inside a smart contract. They are typically just an identifier with some metadata thrown in. And then most NFTs also have a visual representation to it that comes from a URL, or just like any web URL, right? So it could be an image, it could be video, etc. There's nothing that says that URL cannot be a link to another decentralized application. And that decentralized application then dynamically does some work to, yes, render the image, but at the same time also maybe runs some revenue generation process or anything like that. So there's various models that can be done. If you start with the concept that an NFT is in a smart contract just merely a number, what value you add to it, how the appearance you add to it, etc., is all up to you based upon the URL you add there. And so if you can add intelligent things to that URL, whether they are centralized or decentralized, depending on your use case, your NFT can be very rich and very vibrant and can have all kinds of dynamic properties.
Okay, and this kind of NFT would be minted by the author of the code?
Typically, if only the author of the code would do that, then you would have one NFT, which is not very interesting at all. But what you would want is, from a module developer standpoint, to create a module that allows people to create many such NFTs where they can come and mint their own, and perhaps through randomness or based upon price, they get certain attributes. So now what you have is a collection of NFTs, and perhaps they are part of a game or they are part of the governance associated with the DAO. You gotta mint this, etc. The part that I'm really excited about is gaming. In fact, it's called GameFi, which is where NFTs and finance and gaming, they meet. So imagine a smart module developer has created an NFT module that is for gaming and which creates game assets. And other people have created game engines where the game assets from this module can be used. Now, in most games today, game assets are in a walled garden. They're stuck in that game. But with this kind of model, you can move the sword you earned in game A to game B, or you can take the shield you earned here and move it there. This makes it much more dynamic and interesting for gameplay. So there are various different scenarios you can implement, but one base module that has this NFT and the ability to add custom attributes to it makes so many different scenarios available.
Okay. Yeah, regarding this GameFi, I played some Web3 games so far. And one of the games that I played is called Steppen, and it's about like move and earn. You just move and you just, mine tokens whenever you move. It's on Solana, so it's pretty, like the transaction fees are low, so it's pretty smooth. And, one thought that I had was that, when Nike just get out their NFT shoes, like they could make a partnership with this game, and whenever you have Nike shoes, you can mint more or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it creates totally new options for blending this physical and digital world, and also digital and digital, like, from different games. So like it might be hard to maybe, import a sword to Cyberpunk 2077, but if it was, if we had games from Blizzard, like 5 different games from the same environment, then it might make total sense to just import the items between the different games. Okay, so I have another question, and it's a question about the cornerstone of Web3. And the question is about community, because without community, there's no Web3, basically.
Yeah.
So how do you take care of Decentology's community? Apart from, because we talked about making new developers interested in your product, but I'm wondering, what do you do when they already said, okay, it's interesting and we will join Discord, or I don't know, or we'll sign up to newsletter or whatever. So how do you take care of them?
Yeah, I think, for most developers, they show up in a Discord when they have a problem. That's the first time they show up. And so that's our first opportunity to make them feel welcome. And we do that. So if someone's coming with a problem, our team is very grateful, first of all, that they've actually tried our product and are going to help them out. So that's one thing. The second thing is we are constantly thinking of ways in which to do small, giveaways and things like that, like giveaway POAP badges, which are like attendance NFTs to people for attending both virtual and offline events. So we'll be doing Twitter giveaways frequently in the community to help developers feel more welcome and to get more benefits, more perks. And ultimately, we are also starting, we haven't done this yet, but we will soon also start regular office hours. So developers can just come and hang and talk about anything. And in fact, we've done regular sort of community calls, and we'll continue to do those also. So it's not just one thing, Mac. It's like multiple things, multiple small things. We are a fledgling community right now. It is growing. And through all these boot camps and workshops we are doing, we're going to be touching more and more developers, and we see this growing. And I think the key to any kind of healthy community is, first of all, to recognize that you can't manage it all, you can't take care of it all. So we are transitioning to a DAO, and part of our role there is to identify the leaders in the community and empower them to do what is needed to keep the community healthy. So that's one of my top priorities, is to make sure this transition to the DAO goes well, and that we can identify the leaders in the community who can then, do what leaders do, which is excel and help people get comfortable in the space.
Okay, thanks for that. So, Nik, we'll get to the three questions that I always ask in this podcast. So they are not a big surprise for the listeners. The first question is, what were the most mind-blowing Web3 projects that you have seen? Something that really surprised you in a way that, how have you even built that? Something that was pretty abstract or maybe super interesting or super useful.
Yeah, two projects come to mind. Of course, I would have to say the first one is our project, but I know you're not asking me that question. I think two projects that come to mind is, once during the pandemic, the amazing role that Axie Infinity played in the Philippines in enabling millions of people to actually have a livelihood. To me, that was Web3 realized. Like, here was crypto technology actually feeding people or housing people, etc., through game. And now play to earn is sort of a standard thing. But that, I think, was quite an eye-opener for me, that, yeah, what we're doing is real and it can make a difference. From a tech standpoint, I continue to be amazed at what Chainlink does. Right now, most people don't think of oracles as being very significant. But seriously, if Web3 is going to make any inroads at all, that bridge from the real world to chain has to happen at scale. And Chainlink is doing an amazing job at that. And I think the way they're doing it is pretty impressive. So those are two projects that I think are pretty awesome.
I'm a big fan of Chainlink myself, because they help us, and it was the thought that I had when I learned about blockchain, that they help us to get closer to truth. And this is a big thing. I mean, getting more objective. And they have Balaji on board as an advisor, and I've heard that a month ago, Eric Schmidt, the former Google CEO, joined as an advisor as well. So they are getting big, and I have my fingers crossed for them, for sure. Okay, so other question I have is, what has been the thing that made you smile, or was super funny, made you smile, made you laugh, during these years in the Web3 space?
So I have a funny incident to tell you. I haven't shared this with too many people, but when we got incorporated, Decentology Incorporated, we went to the bank to get an account. And we, at that point, the company was called Fair Crypto. We since rebranded to Decentology. So here we are at the bank, sitting with this very nice gentleman. And, we gave the company name and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, "Are you sure you're not doing anything, crypto?" I'm like, no, we are doing with blockchain, we are doing programming stuff, etc. And he asked three times. And I was like, yeah, I know our name is Try Crypto. And this is actually why we changed it, because everyone kept thinking we are doing crypto stuff, but we are doing programming. And it was only as I was walking out later and I saw my reflection in like a mirror there, that I was wearing an I Heart BTC hat. So I'm like, here I'm trying to get a bank account. So that was so funny.
Yeah, like BTC hat, bankless shirt, and can I open a bank account?
Yeah. So yeah, that was funny.
Okay, thank you for that story. So, Nik, I have only last question for you. Because this whole Decentology project is super exciting, and I've seen your timeline that you want to expand pretty fast. So, what's your goal for March? What do you want to achieve in March in terms of Decentology?
Yeah, very good question. So for March, we want to make sure that we have both Flow and Ethereum chain modules. We are preparing around 5 of them for each of them. Like these are 5 really meaningful modules that we are out there, and we've had lots of developers use them. We are also in the process of closing our strategic round. We are doing a $15 million round right now. So we want to have closed that out. March is also our sort of those modules I talked about. It's our audit month. We want to get those. We don't have the full audit, community audit model done yet, but we want to have those audited. And so we can be live in April. So April is our production sort of go live. So March is a pretty big month. We also will start off the month with Developer DAO. We are the lead sponsor of that conference. I'm going to go to the World Blockchain Summit in Dubai. I have a panel there and several other workshops in there, including and the women's conference that we are planning with Flow. So there's going to be a lot of events, but from a platform standpoint, we want to make sure that Flow, Ethereum, and Metis are solid, and we've got lots of developers going.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sounds like a very intense month.
Oh, yeah.
So where our listeners could learn more about Decentology, should they go to your Twitter or Discord, or what's the best place for them to learn more?
Yeah, I think our website at decentology.com is the best place to go. And if you want to join our Discord, it's discord.gg/decentology. But you can find links for all of them at our website at decentology.com.
Okay, so Nik, last question. Because we had a nice conversation and you shared a lot of details about the business, and I really like it because, you know, the idea of this podcast is to talk only with builders, no VCs, no traders, no thought leaders, whatever it means, and just builders. So I'm wondering, do you have any idea who would be a good fit for this kind of conversation?
Yeah, there's 2 that come to mind. One is, I think, the founders of a project called Surge Women. I think they would be great to talk to. They have essentially built up a project whose goal is to educate people about Web3 through content. And it's a women-only group, so it's great. So the founders are great people, and I think you should talk to them. The other person I think would be really, really exciting for you to talk to is actually my colleague. His name is Jacob Tucker. He has created the Emerald City DAO, which is a DAO for developers to learn about Flow, how to build on Flow. And that has grown very, very rapidly. And Jacob has pretty much single-handedly built that out. And he's much loved in the community, a great guy. And I think he'll be great on your podcast.
Okay, thank you for these suggestions. I will be very happy, especially to talk with Surge Women, because I think we haven't had women yet on the podcast. Because, you know, there are mostly guys in Web3. There are so many jokes about it. So it will be very interesting to see their perspective and what challenges they see for women to join us. So it will be super fun.
And if you want to learn about DAOs, then you have to talk to Chase Chapman, who's my Decentology co-founder. She's got her own podcast, but she's great to talk to about all things related to DAO.
Oh, so this is also a very hot topic right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you a lot, Nik, for your time.
Thank you.
And see you on Twitter and Metaverse, or maybe, you know, on a conference in somewhere in the world.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this conversation. Have a great day.
Yeah, me too. Have a good day.